Hello everyone and welcome back to the Football Forecast. In today's video, I'm going to be going through my Premier League predictions for Game Week 5. If you enjoy the video and if you want to support the channel, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate anybody that's able to do this. It's completely free, but it really does help me in terms of growing the channel into the future. So starting off with the Merseyside Derby, what a game this has the potential to be. I am really excited for this game as a Liverpool fan, and it is partly because it does actually feel like in this game Everton will be somewhat competitive, and probably at their best than we've seen in the last 5 or 6 years, probably since Carlo Ancelotti, actually, to be precise, with James Rodriguez and those sort of players. So it's going to be interesting. Can Everton find a way to get more than their usual loss? Obviously, David Moyes has a poor record at Anfield. This is very well published and very well known. So, look, it's going to be difficult for Everton. We all know this. Liverpool are the strongest side, and I do still think Liverpool will just have enough to get over the line. But sort of looking at who's injured, who's out in this game, Curtis Jones is potentially doubtful for this game. Obviously, a sort of player you sort of want for this game, being a Scouser. He understands this game, and he's the sort of player you would actually want to play. I reckon Mikalenko's potentially out, and Jared Brantford's out for Everton. We know this is Everton's big loss in defence. And if Michael Keane plays with Tarkowski, I do feel that Liverpool have the potential to have a bit of a field day in this game. How have both sides started off so far? Well, Liverpool have started off with 5 wins from 5, but it hasn't been the most convincing at points. Obviously, we've relied on the last-minute goals. I think people have sort of underestimated, though, with Liverpool sort of the last-minute goals. People are very much about how lucky it is, but you've got to sort of understand there is a skill in scoring last-minute goals, and I don't really think it's that lucky. I think the only one you'd say that is lucky is the Burnley game, where we obviously got the handball, where it obviously looked like Mesbury was playing for us and trying to get us that penalty. Everton I've been really impressed by. Obviously, they lost to Leeds on the first day, but then apart from that, I think Everton have been very good. They were unlucky not to win against Villa, and they've won their other 3 games. So this is, I think, one of the better sides Everton have gone into this game, but I still think Liverpool will have just enough to get the job done at Anfield, and I'm going for a 2-1 win, and I could see a late goal again for Liverpool. It's just the theme right now. It's so hard to bet against it. Moving on to what I think is probably the hardest game of the weekend to predict, between Brighton and Spurs. I mean, these two teams are so strange. Brighton win a lot of games you would expect them to not win, and Brighton lose a lot of games where you're like, how have they not really won that game? They often end up with a draw or a loss out of a game you'd expect them to win, and Spurs is exactly the same. So this makes this game, I think, incredibly difficult to predict. In some ways, I feel like, should I just go against my logic and actually predict the opposite of what I believe will actually happen? Because that's what seems to happen whenever I predict these two teams. So looking at sort of how both sides have started this season, Brighton haven't started particularly well. They got a win against Manchester City, which is so Brighton, but then have drawn to Fulham, lost to Everton, and lost to Bournemouth. Spurs have won all the games. Spurs have won against Manchester City, which I guess you'd expect these days, but based off face value, you wouldn't. And then they lost to Bournemouth the next week. So Spurs are just a bit strange, if you ask me, and so are Brighton. Looking at sort of who's available and not, Weitha is out for Brighton. Webster and March are all potential outs. Solanke's out for Spurs. I don't think this is a problem because they just bring in Richarlison. Dragashin is potentially out as well for Spurs. Oh, no, in fact, he is out for Spurs, what am I talking about? Kulusevski is out and Madison's out. So Spurs do have some injuries, but I think at each position they can replace that player. And this is where I'm going to go to a bit of a strange record. I mean, if you look at this game, Brighton have dominated the fixture apart from February 2024 and April the 9th, 2023. But under Ange, it's fair to say Brighton dominated this fixture, especially at home. And that's what I'm going to back again. I'm going to go with a 2-1 win for Brighton, because I actually think Spurs are going to win, but that's why I'm going with Brighton, because of that previous logic. So on to Burnley, Nottingham Forest, and is this Ange Postecoglou's time to get the first win on the board after losing in the Cup to Swansea and losing to Arsenal 3-0, and he also lost to Swansea in the Cup after being 2-0 up. You'd think this is a game that Ange must win, but after seeing Burnley on the weekend at home, I'm not so convinced. I think Burnley have the potential to do something, maybe cause an upset, go against the grain here potentially, because if Burnley set up up how they set up against us, Liverpool, then Burnley can 100% nick a point from this game, I'm convinced, because that defensive block was quite brilliant, and this is against one of the best sides in the Premier League, if not the best. I would say the best. We have the likes, and at breaking down low blocks, we have the likes of Alexis McAllister, Florian Wirtz, Mo Salah, Andy Robertson, players like that can break down low blocks. But Nottingham Forest don't have those sort of players in abundance. They have Gibbs White and maybe McAtee, and maybe you could say someone like Dan and Doy, but the rest isn't quite fitting that role. I don't know if Nottingham Forest are going to be able to break down Burnley, and for that reason, I'm actually going to go with a 0-0 draw. So on to West Ham, Crystal Palace, and West Ham have to find a way, and Graham Potter, for his job's sake, has to find a way to get something from this game. It's that simple. He's under pressure, especially at home. That's where I think the West Ham fans are frustrated. The home form is shocking. It's absolutely shocking. They haven't won since February, and you can't have that at home as a Premier League club like West Ham. They won't stand for it much longer. He has to win at home. This is a fixture that's 100% winnable. Another London derby. They have to win this game, and Crystal Palace need to be put in their place. They can't afford not to win this game. If West Ham don't, then I really think Potter needs to go. I think he needs to go 3 weeks ago, but I think if he loses this, it's just going to keep turning until West Ham are eventually dragged into a relegation fight. And for now, I don't think they are, but a couple more losses like this, even if they will lose this game, I think they're right in it. And I'm going to go with a 3-0 Crystal Palace win. I think West Ham are just in all sorts of trouble. I really do. And I'm going to keep saying this, keep betting against West Ham, because I just think they're in such a dire position. Big game in the relegation scrap between Wolverhampton Wanderers and Leeds United, and the reason why it's so big is because Wolverhampton Wanderers haven't won a Premier League game so far. Their only one has come in the Cup against West Ham United, and Wolves have struggled so far defensively, but also finding the back of the net. Their only goals have come against Everton, and that has been a problem for Wolves. For Leeds, obviously, they had that tragic end to the Fulham game where they actually played quite well. They could have got a valiant point, but an own goal from Goodmanson really ended any hope that Leeds had from that game. And I actually think Leeds have started well in this game, well in the season. Leeds have shown some fight. I still think they'll eventually get dragged into it, but I think Leeds have just shown enough fight so far to sort of show that maybe Daniel Farke can keep them up, even though I still would sack them. Obviously, Jorgen Strand Larsen also is out with an Achilles tendon injury, which is good for Leeds because he's such a threat. But I still think Wolves will just have enough, and I'm going to go with a 1-0 win for Wolves, which will be a crucial 3 points in terms of relieving pressure on Wolves, but also Vitor Pereira. On to Manchester United, Chelsea, and the pressure is definitely on the Manchester United manager, Ruben Amorim. There is no doubt about this. Where I sit on the topic is, look, you can sack him, but I'm not sure Manchester United will have a drastic improvement. They might improve 3 or 4 places, because I do think Amorim is consistently making mistakes now. But I don't think Manchester United can have that huge increase unless they get a top quality manager in like Diego Simeone. Maybe someone like a Jurgen Klopp, but I don't think they'd ever be able to get Jurgen Klopp in as Manchester United manager. I just don't think it'd ever take that job. From Chelsea's perspective, they've struggled in their last couple of games, obviously drawing to Brentford. They showed a bit of a weakness, I think, a lack of sort of centre-half, sort of someone that can lead the defence. That's where I think Chelsea are lacking in defence currently. I know they've got their fullbacks like Reece James, who's an absolute leader, but a big centre-half is what Chelsea are lacking, I'm convinced. And that also, I think, cost them in the Bayern game, having a lack of leadership, which resulted in individual mistakes being made and sort of crumbling, I think, under pressure. And for this game, I do actually think United have the ability to not lose this game. I think Amorim will set them up in the same way. We'll know exactly how he sets them up, but I do think Manchester United will nick a 1-1 draw. But the pressure is still well and truly on Ruben Amorim, as it's not going to be a great performance. I don't even want to talk about this game. It's just boring, if I'm being honest. Sorry, any Fulham and Brentford fans. I just find these sort of London games just a bit boring between sides like this. Just a bit of a nothing game, if you ask me. I mean, Fulham, I guess they're a bit more interesting than Brentford, but I mean, they're just two sustainable Premier League clubs that are just going to stay sort of mid-table and never really going to grow, and that's what they're happy to do. And I just find it boring sort of talking about these sort of sides, because they're never involved in a relegation scrap, and they're never involved in sort of fighting really for Europe. Fulham did it a little bit last year, and so so did Brentford, but never really had an actual push into Europe. I mean, I'm just going to go with a 1-1 draw between Fulham and Brentford. That just feels like a correct result for this game. So, on to Bournemouth-Newcastle. I mean, I think this is actually a really good game. Newcastle are going to be, I think, on a high because they've just won against Barcelona. That's my prediction because I've recorded this before Newcastle-Barcelona. So, if you want to see that video where I review the game, then head over to, then check that out after you finish this video. But anyway, Newcastle, I think they're could be in a bit of trouble for this game, and that's because they're just off the adrenaline of what I think winning Barcelona. I think it's going to be difficult to sort of get the match fitness they need. We know they struggle with 3 games a week, and that's only, I think, a 2-day break they basically get for this game, and it's an early kickoff. I think this is a real trouble for Newcastle, and I think they will struggle to get anything from this game, and I'm actually going to go with a 2-0 win for Bournemouth. So, Sunderland, Aston Villa. I mean, Sunderland need to be looking at this game as a game they can win. Sunderland's home form, and I'll continue to say this, is absolutely crucial. I think Sunderland can challenge the very best at home. Away from home, I'm not so convinced, but I think at home, Sunderland have to be looking at this game and go, if we win this, we're on 10 points after 5 games. That's very much gives us a huge platform to then survive in this league, and I think they can. And I think this is a sort of game they can win. I genuinely believe this. Villa look like they're just under so much mess. I just don't know what's going on at Aston Villa. There's something wrong. I think Emery's going to walk the season. That's my prediction because I just think Villa are just like, they're in an absolute mess. They've scored 1 goal in 5 games, and their goal they scored against Brentford was tragic. I like Harvey Elliott as a Liverpool fan, but I mean, it was a P-roller and the keepers just absolutely messed it up. And yeah, so I actually think that Sunderland are actually going to have enough to get over this game. I think the crowd's going to be absolutely up after there's such a positive start, especially at home, and I'm going with a 2-1 win for Sunderland. I hope a team like this stays up. I'm absolutely desperate for it. We need this. We need a relegation battle in the Premier League, and I really think Sunderland can be that team this year. So, on to the final game of the weekend between Arsenal and Manchester City. There will 100% be a preview plus a review. There will also be a preview for Liverpool, Everton, and Manchester United, Chelsea, when I give my thoughts on those games, as well as reviews for any other Premier League games that I think are worth talking about. So subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can check out those videos when they are released. So Arsenal. Well, Arsenal have started pretty well this season. They have looked like a decent side, I think. They've won obviously against Bilbao. They've won against Nottingham Forest. They struggled in the Liverpool game, and I was disappointed with their mentality in that game. They won against Leeds, and then they won against Manchester United. I think they've been convincing about half their games there. And then obviously they do have injury concerns, but I don't think this is really an excuse because so do Manchester City. They have Martin Odegaard out, they have Bukayo Saka, they have Jesus, they have Havertz, and City have John Stones, Kovacic, Aït-Nouri, Marmoush, Cherokee. And Arsenal have spent so much money this summer, let's be honest, they've spent a lot of money. So they've got that depth that they need this summer to go and push and not worry about injury concerns. So they can't use that excuse again. So that one is ruled out for Arsenal for now, the injury one. So let's see what else they come up with in this game. No, I'm only kidding. I do actually think Arsenal are going to win against Manchester City. But what I want to see from Arsenal is when you go 1-0 up, don't sit back, Arteta. Go push for the second, push for the third. Your best performance last season was either that Real Madrid game where you just kept pushing at Emirates, or that game against Manchester City, which I'd argue was better, where it was just a constant push. You went for 5 goals. That's what you need to do again. Play with no fear. That's when Arsenal look at their best at the end of the 23-24 season and the 22-23 early parts of the season is where Arsenal actually looked at their best, and that's because they had that attacking intent. Do I think they have the attacking intent in this game? No, I don't think they will. I just can't back it. I know they're better with it at home, but I'm not convinced he's going to go with it. I think Gyökeres is going to go pretty quiet in a 1-0 win for Arsenal. Please let me know your predictions for these games. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's going to be loads of videos around the Premier League this weekend. Let me know what videos you want to see, and when the results come in, what games you think are really interesting to talk about, and I will talk about those games. Anyway, I hope your team does well this weekend, unless it's a rival of Liverpool.